captions available. Subtítulos disponibles.
Hello everyone, we are here with Heather from the Bunny Jackpot Foundation, and we have invited her to talk about splayed-legs. So, she's been working a lot with splayed-legged rabbits, and I think her experience may be very helpful for you to understand how to take care of splayed-legged rabbits. So, tell us a bit about Bunny Jackpot first.
Sure thing. So I run the Bunny Jackpot Foundation, which is a rescue in the UK. We have fosters all over the UK. We've got a team of fosters and general kind of supportive people of about 40, and they're based primarily in the southwest of the UK, which is where I am, but we're kind of spread all over the place. Yeah. Our rescue was officially opened about a year and a half ago now, but I have been working with rabbits for a lot longer than that. Yeah. I graduated from a completely non-animal related degree way back when, and then afterwards promptly moved to Australia for a year, where my aunt, who runs a rabbit vet in Australia, took me under her wing, and I got to work a whole year in a rabbit vet in Australia. So I got to learn a lot about everything about rabbits, really. They do things a bit differently in Australia because they've got different viruses, different infections, all sorts of stuff. So that was really, really invaluable clinically, I think. Came back to the UK and instantly was like, no, I need to keep doing stuff with rabbits, because it wasn't what I was going to do work-wise. I've never worked my day job to do with rabbits. It's always been my second job almost. So I started fostering for a bit, and then I did some bonding, and then I did some more fostering, and then it got to a point where I was like, I need to set up my own rescue. So I did. And here I am with a rescue, which is about half sanctuary at this point. Half of the rabbits with us will never leave us because they are too medically compromised or disabled or palliative, and then the other half we rehabilitate and rehome.
That's nice. Yeah, it's normal to hear that. There's a lot of people that tell you that they started with 1-2 rabbits, and eventually they said, oh, this is wonderful, I want to take care of them, I love them, and start developing more and more into the caring for more. So yeah, it's nice to hear. So with that considered, now that you've told us about your career and what you've had through these years and taking care of rabbits, how many splayed-legged rabbits have you taken care of?
Oh, I don't even know the number off the top of my head. A lot would be the answer. The first splay-legged rabbit I looked after was actually when I lived in Australia. That's how I got I don't want to call it the bug. I don't go out there looking for splay-legged rabbits to take care of, because I think they're wonky, but they find themselves coming to me because we are one of the few sanctuaries in the UK who are so, I would say one of about 3 come to mind who actually look after splay-legged rabbits. Yeah. How many have I had? Between 10 and 15, I would say, over the past kind of 5 or 6 years. I currently have three girls upstairs, and 3 girls and then 1 boy with a hind limb paralysis, but that's different splaying, but I'll talk about that a bit later. So yeah, it's a fair few. And the interesting thing is, and I'm in the process of beginning to thinking about writing a paper on it, is that every single congenital splay-legged rabbit is female.
Ooh.
There you go. Hot off the press.
Yeah. Is there any I'm guessing it's kind of like genetical, as in maybe having to do with reproductory organs or hormonal?
I couldn't tell you the science because the only data I have is me, who has met most of the splay-legged rabbits in the UK. Every single one I've met is a girl. The one that I had in Australia was a girl. And I think it's really important to distinguish what people think is a splay-legged rabbit as well, because there's 2 very different things. There is a rabbit who has splay legs as a result of 1 to 5 different conditions, or you have a congenital splay-legged rabbits. Okay. All of my splay-legged rabbits have congenital issues. They were born with splay legs. There's nothing that's caused them apart from something when they were in uterus, and it's come out genetically. It's completely different to hind limb paralysis. If you've got a rabbit dragging their legs behind because they've had an accident or an infection or something that has caused that. Splay leg in the congenital sense is completely different.
Okay. Yeah, we've followed for some time some rabbits that do have rear end paralysis, and it is noticeable and it's different. I think though we could say that in care they're pretty similar on how on how you must adapt your house and your environment for the rabbit. But I understand that that's something different, and I think it is really important to differentiate because you can get faulty information regarding what the thing is. So yeah, you talked a bit about your first splayed-legged rabbit. You said that it was in Australia.
Yeah.
You were living with a relative by that time, right?
Yeah, I was living with my aunt who's a vet, and we were on a house call, vaccinating a litter of baby rabbits and their parents. And we got there and we started vaccinating everyone, and then this little one was presented to us, and it was a case of they were going to put her to sleep, or we were going to take her. And she was mostly my fault, to be honest. I think at that point my aunt was thinking, why have I brought Heather over to Australia and she's now loads of rabbits? But we brought her home. Her legs were sticking out. I mean, this was a breeder, so she was breeding and inbreeding. It was going to happen at some point. Her name was Alaska, and she lived 3.5 years, I think. But she had one of the most severe splays that I've ever seen. She had both of her back legs, but they were both splayed kind of towards one way. One of her front legs as well. So she had just one leg, and she'd sort of swim around with her leg. And she was brilliant. She had great quality of life. She was sassy as anything. She had 2 boyfriends. She was a wonderful little rabbit. She couldn't be spayed, as is the case with a lot of splay legs. You can spay a lot of them, but some of them you can't. It depends how their knees bend in and whether you can get to their genitals. But yeah, she was fantastic. Yeah.
Is there anything you remember when you first brought her home? Is there any, like, oh my god, now I have to take care of all these things in the house to ensure that the rabbit is not going, like, is not in danger or whatever?
I don't know. I think I've been in a really privileged position because I've grown up with a family who are all everyone in my family has rabbits. Most people grow up, their mums and dads, they have cats, they have dogs.
Yeah.
My family has always been a rabbit family. My grandparents had rabbits, my parents have rabbits, I have rabbits, we all have rabbits. And living with my aunt as well, who is a vet, one of the best in the world, I would say, and I'm not saying that because I'm biased. She sees probably the more rabbits than any other vet in the whole wide world, because that's all she sees. She knew what she was doing. She would have said straight up if there was no chance of quality of life. So I think straight away, and this is the case with all splays, they don't free roam. We don't free roam them. They have to be in a secure place because we can't afford for them to get stuck. We can't afford for them to get hurt, all these things. And it's a controlled environment. You need the vet bed on the floor. You need to keep them comfy. There are extra things that you have to worry about, as you do probably with any chronic illness or infection or disability. They just have to have their lives a little bit different. It doesn't mean it's a bad life. It doesn't mean they haven't got quality of life. And Alaska, God, she had so much sass. She was the most demanding little thing. But there was a lot of extra care. There's a lot of care for her. Yeah.
So now that you've talked a bit about splay-legs, but you have also mentioned that you take care of all the rabbits that are in a sanctuary. Is it really different to take care of a rabbit with splayed legs rather than a rabbit with another disability?
Oh, it's kind of a how long is a piece of string question. It depends what disabilities you're talking about. All of our sanctuary rabbits live in I'll keep using the term controlled environments. They get the minimum amount of space. So they get their 60 square feet. They get companionship, they're all together. But they couldn't, I couldn't have them free roaming in the living room on hardwood flooring. Yeah. I couldn't have them, free roaming in the living room in the kitchen with my island in the middle of it. Everything has to be accessible. I've got walk-in litter trays, and most of them don't use the litter tray. The place gets absolutely trashed. every single morning and night I come in and I'm like, this is disgusting. If people saw this, they would think that I like don't look after you properly. None of them use the litter tray. They have 2 walk-in litter trays. You know, you see on I don't know what it's like in Spain, but there's this person who makes like custom litter trays in the UK where they've got like big bars and then the rabbit can sit in the tray and eat the bars. They can't use those because most of them can't lean up high enough or they can't meerkat. So everything has to be walk in, it's in front of your face. Everything is vet bedded. They drag their bottoms a lot, so I have to check their bums twice a day, every day, and make sure that everyone is clean. They have bum shaves. I have different like topical creams and stuff that I have to use depending on what's going on. Summer is always horrible because they don't use the litter tray. It gets very dirty very quickly. In winter, that's not so bad. In summer, it's like I'm cleaning faster. They are pooing faster than I can clean most of the time. And when you work a full-time job and have all the other rescue animals I have, it can be very, very tiring. But other than that, it's all like the husbandry. It's all the environment. It's all the kind of checking that bums are okay. Apart from that, it's mostly ears because most splay rabbits have problems with legs that they use to clean the ears, which means that most of them can't clean their ears, which means there's usually a massive buildup of crap in there. I quite like that sort of thing. You know, like pimple popper videos? I like getting that gunk out of the ears. And, I wouldn't recommend anyone do it unless they've talked to a vet and a vet has shown them how far to go, and you can really do some damage with eardrums and stuff. But I love it. I just get in there and I scoop it out and it's great. And then the rabbits are usually like doing that and trying to itch themselves, but they can't quite get there. So it's, you know, there are satisfying bits of looking after them too.
So I guess then you basically, the only things that actually change when it comes to taking care of them is the things that come with the disability. So things like, as you mentioned, getting the bum a bit dirty, getting the floor a bit dirty, and ensuring everything is on their face. Is it similar with other things like rabbits with head tilt or?
So I've got one of the sanctuary group upstairs is a head tilt rabbit. Absolutely no difference. She's probably the most able out of the lot of them. She too has chosen not to use a litter tray. Unsurprising, because if she's with a load of friends who don't use one, why would she? With her, it's the same. You know, she rolls sometimes. She gets a bit, if you move things around, she gets disorientated. But because she's with friends who are also differently abled, she can get into everything. She's cheeky as anything, and she has no qualms about telling people off if they get in her way. So, you know, I think head tilt is a lot like splay leg, something that people see and go, that doesn't look right, that's the end. And I get so many people on Instagram. I had someone yesterday saying, I'm really sorry to see that one of your rabbits has head tilt. And I was like, please don't be sorry. She has an absolutely blooming brilliant life. I don't care that her head's sideways. She certainly doesn't care that her head is sideways. Her friends don't care that her head is sideways. There's nothing to be sorry about. You know, she's fantastic.
If a rabbit has the energy to still sass you, then it's still happy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna get into the questions more about splayed legs. As you can see on the text I've prepared from Splayed-Legged, apparently you can have a variety of reasons why the legs are splayed, depending on, you know, bone rotation, being paralyzed, being hurt, and many other reasons. Is there any special reason you have encountered in general?
It's most of my splay-legged rabbits are congenital splay-legged rabbits. They've been born that way. I even had 2 sisters, and they were both born from the same litter, and they were both splayed from congenital issues. One of them did not thrive, and she passed away. The other one is doing absolutely beautifully. Splay leg as a splay leg in its own kind of condition, always congenital. Rabbits who have splay legs as a result of injury or fall, we've got a little rabbit called Kendrick Lamar, who is in our care, who allegedly fell off some furniture when he was a baby, but he was more likely thrown or abused, and he can't use both his back legs. So they're kind of like a frog. He
Yeah.
kind of like frogs around with them. So he's upstairs, and his is a trauma. His legs are how they are because of trauma. I've had similar. I've had rabbits. Pavlova comes to mind. She was a beautiful, beautiful rabbit who I had, and she passed away last year. She was also. That's all right. Do you know what? I have so many rabbits who pass away because I have a palliative care sanctuary. I now remember them and I smile rather than just sobbing.
Oh yeah,
so
it is a bittersweet.
it is, and honestly, even if I have them for a week, it's a good week. So Pavlova had both her legs from a trauma injury as well, and I've seen other people with rabbits like her on Instagram saying their rabbits are splayed, and I just go, no, that's not splay leg. I go, that's spinal trauma. I could bet I could trace her spine down the body, and I could see where the problem was, which you can do if you've got a spinal trauma bunny. You can usually run your finger down the length of the spine. You can feel where the issue is. It's the same with Kendrick upstairs. And then, of course, you've got things like EC. And I am putting my neck on the line by saying this, but I am one of the people who feels that EC is massively fear-mongered about. Most rabbits have EC. The latest study said that over half of rabbits in the UK, I think it was alone, have EC. So when people go, oh no, it's the EC, I go, oh, don't start, please. Most rabbits have it. Soap probably has it. All of my guys will have it. Everyone has it. The ones who are unlucky are the ones who get symptomatic, and those are like a real tiny amount in the grand scheme of things. So yes, I get EC rabbits. I get rabbits who've come in and they've had an EC flare-up that has affected their ability to walk, but I don't go, oh my god, it's the EC. I go, you're one of the unlucky few.
Yeah.
So the shelter I volunteer at, there's been several cases where a rabbit has developed particularly. And they've always been in situations where, like for example, the bonding with someone, or they're in a time of particularly intense stress, like just been back to the vet and traumatised and that kind of thing. In those cases, it's been fixed by having this cream on hand that
Cuniculi.
it, and if it's applied straight away, none of the cases that I've seen, it was always treated straight away.
Yeah. So Panica is the go-to treatment for EC, and usually do, I want to say, 27-day courses of it from seeing the presentation. Repeat courses shouldn't really be done unless really necessary because it can affect bone marrow. Although sometimes you do need 2 or 3 to knock it. And you're right, it is absolutely something that flares up due to stress. It doesn't mean that they've suddenly got it. They've always had it. It's just something has happened and they've gone, their brain's gone, oh my god, stressful, better put my head sideways. Don't ask me why that's the reaction, that their brain says this will make it better. But it is a completely, like, it's a neurological effect. It's a parasite. It doesn't mean it's endgame. Most of the time, like you said, it can be resolved. And even if they do end up with a lasting head tilt, rabbits live long, happy, full lives with them.
Yeah, talking a bit how it's already in the body, it reminds me a bit of coccidia too. Like it's like every rabbit has coccidia until it actually starts having symptoms.
I don't know enough about coccidia, I'm not going to lie. I've seen a couple of cases of it and we've managed to treat it really quickly with Baycox. But in terms of its inception, how it gets in the body, what it's like, I'm not as up on it because it's not something I really have seen. There's a couple of rescues in the UK who've got really unlucky and had it over and over again. Yeah. I have not. We've not had a case of it, so lucky us.
Yeah, it's a horrible thing because you, just like many other things, you really can't just treat them. You can just give them palliative care. So once the coccidia has advanced enough, the disease has advanced enough, you cannot really care for them. You have to wait for it to, slowly kill the rabbit, and it is not a very sweet thing to hear when you do it. Yeah, it's coccidia, and you instantly think, oh no, that's not going to be a good prospect. So, coming back to the splayed legs, we took a bit of a detour there, but that's fine. I was meaning to ask you how hindering can it be for the rabbit. I'm guessing it depends a bit on the amount of legs that are splayed. But how does it change between each?
You're right. It is dependent on the rabbit in question. Most splay legs live long, happy lives, and it doesn't hinder them at all. They just run a little bit different. They walk a little bit different. They might binky a little bit different, but they can do all those things. They can run, walk, binky. You know, I'm thinking I've got Lizzo upstairs, and there's this video on Instagram of her doing a ridiculous binky from one end of the room to the other, but she catches my head tilt rabbit in the crossfire and absolutely blazes into her, and the head tilt rabbit goes over and is just turtling in the air. But it's just like a beautiful celebration of wonky rabbits being wonky. It can, in most cases, splay leg congenitally anyway, you should be able to have a happy, longish life. They will not live as long as other rabbits. Categorically, they won't live as long as other rabbits. And if I've got this thing in my head, fail to thrive is the phrase that I use. Whenever I get a young splay leg in, the first 6 months are the most critical because that's when their legs are growing, particularly their back legs. If their back legs grow in a certain way, they can grow inwards and upwards. Now we've got a lot of important things in the belly. So if the legs grow up and the knees come in, it can really impact their ability to breathe, their ability to, I don't know, do basic things like poo or wee. So those first few months are critical, and I have had a couple of splay legs who have failed to thrive, and they've both been both girls, obviously, and they both had splay legs where their legs have grown almost like in one straight line, and so their knees have come right up into their stomach. And one of them was a quad splay, so all 4 limbs spread out, and she passed away. And it wasn't even a case of, because I'm very big on quality of life, and I really feel that euthanasia is a complete gift that we have as rescuers. You know, it's a kindness that we can absolutely use. But with both the girls, fine 1 minute, the next minute, they, like Skepta, for example, one of them, she passed away while she was eating. I just saw her suddenly slow down, and I was like, what's happening here? And then she was gone. That was it. She was gone. And it's just like almost instantly something has happened inside and gone, no, there's too much pressure, something's happened, and then they go. And I had it with Cardi as well. She got to actually a year, which was a bit more unnatural, but her femurs were twisted as well. So she wasn't just like your average splay where the legs are a bit out. Her whole insides were all messed up. So I think it's important. The first 6 months for congenital splays is really important. For trauma splay, I don't even like calling them splays. For spinal injury rabbits, for example, your prognosis is much, much, much weaker. You will have months. You won't have years in the most likelihood. You might get 1 year if you're lucky, but usually you have months, and that month or months will be very difficult because they're very different to splay-legged rabbits. There is so much more care that's involved. There is, Pavlova, I had to express her bladder 3 times a day because she couldn't pee on her own, which wasn't fair to her in the end. I made a kind decision towards the end of her life because she just got to a point where I couldn't keep her comfortable and happy. But yeah, spinal traumas are worse, immeasurably worse than congenital splay legs, in my opinion.
No. I've got 2 questions, but I forgot one of them, so I'm just going to ask you one. When you mention a long-lasting life, is that, of course, it's less than a normal rabbit. The average is 10 years. I don't know if it has increased or decreased now. Everywhere it says it's around 10 years. I know they can live up to 16 or even more. But I haven't seen older than 14. How old was Jackie Weaver?
That's not Jackie Weaver.
No, sorry,
number 5 is 16. Yeah,
so the older he's seen is number 5. It's a rabbit that's 16 years old. Has been living for a long time. But with splayed legs and other disabilities, what's the general age that you say?
With congenital splays, I'm going to keep using that like precursor. Different. With congenital splays, if they get past the first 6 months and they aren't failing to thrive, then years and years. I expect Lizzo to outlive me. No, I'm joking. I just think she'll live forever, that rabbit. She's absolutely brilliant. The problem is, and it is the problem with splay-legged rabbits, they're more prone to illness. They are dragging their bottoms around. They are dragging their legs around. They are going to get sores, which can get infections, which can be really hard to take care of. So it really depends on what your husbandry looks like. And then there's all the other stuff that is to do with general rabbit care. Do they have companionship? If they have friends, they're likely to live longer. Do they have good vet care? If they have good vet care, they're likely to live longer. All these different things are part of it. With splay-legged rabbits, it really depends on what is happening with their legs and how good they are. If you've got one leg that just does a bit of that, nothing's going to, they could live till 10, 13 years. If you've got a rabbit who has 3 and gets around but isn't the most stable, they might have 3 or 4 years. I don't know. It's how long is how long is a piece of string, and then obviously with your spinal trauma rabbits, if you get a year, you'll be lucky.
Well, that's I mean, considering what it means to be like that, for them, it is quite a long life, I'd say. I know Cuniculi rabbits also have issues. Also have a reduced lifespan, and with certain diseases, they also have a reduced lifespan. I think. Well, we're not going to enter a bit the letting them go and euthanizing them if they are having a very bad time. I think it's a very big theme, though, to consider when the pet is actually not being happy anymore and not being able to live correctly. And,
yeah.
But as you take care of the beloved rabbits, you are the first one to know that, yeah, as long as they're happy and, as you said, they keep their sass, they are very, very well taken care of.
I think, yeah, thank you. I think I have had, the more compromised rabbits I've had, the better my understanding of what quality of life looks like. And yes, it is individual to every rabbit, and I want to give every rabbit every good day they can ever have. But I am, like I said earlier, a firm believer that euthanasia is a really kind thing. It's a really good thing that we can stop suffering before it gets to a point of impacting their life and making them go through immeasurable pain or discomfort. And I think, I've pretty much, apart from the fail to thrives, who passed very suddenly, any spinal or splay rabbit who I've had in my care has been a put to sleep rather than they've just died, because I wasn't willing to let them go through discomfort and pain. They had great lives with me, and then they reach a point where they tell me that they're ready to go, and then I help them across. And I think that that's a really lovely thing to do. It's one of the hardest parts of rescue because we do it so often, Remember there was a week just before Christmas where we said goodbye to 3 rabbits in 2 days, which was really hard. But at the same time, we look back on it now and we're like, okay, it was the right thing to do for all 3 of them, It's hard in the moment, but it's the right thing.
Yeah, I do have some experience with all the animals that have been very, very sick and had to be put to sleep, because it is, as you said, it is better for them to end it sweet and short rather than very painful and very horrid. Yeah. So coming back again, we take detours, that's fine. It's great because we can talk not only about splayed-legged but about all the things that also are necessary to talk about. So is there any actual behaviour change you have noticed from splayed-legged rabbits to normal rabbits when it comes, for example, to running, playing, eating, apart from,
Yeah, not particularly. They're just like any other rabbits, and most of them don't quite realise that they're disabled. I think that they have their own happy lives, like if you went upstairs and saw them all, you walk in the room and all they see me as is the bringer of food. So I open the door and they all go absolutely crazy, like running around. Their runs look a bit different, they don't hop, they kind of just throw their body around a little bit, but it's lovely. And they each, they eat very well. They poo a lot, I can tell you that much. They are just like other rabbits. It is just other rabbits who look a bit different, and that's what I'm, when I first got my first splay in this area that I live in now, I took them to a gold standard vet, and she suggested I put them to sleep. And I think it's just that thing where you look at a rabbit, and there's also a big conversation about whether a prey animal who has a disability should be able to live because they're a prey animal and their natural instinct is to hide, and they can't do if they've got splay legs. Well, I would challenge that by letting anyone come into my house and come up and see my guys, because there is no aspect of them who does not know how to go and hide in one of their splay-friendly tunnels. They have what they need. Their life looks a bit different because they're on vet bed, and I know they won't live till be 10 years old, but I meet all their welfare requirements, and each day they are living their best lives. So
yeah, I think that they don't even recognize that they have a disability is one of the biggest rabbit things that a rabbit could have. They don't understand anything. They just care about food, bun mom, the treat.
I don't even think they care about me that much. I'm just the one who brings the food. You know, they've got each other. So
every single rabbit will, although they will be very sad afterwards, they will immediately trade you for a piece of peach if they had the option. So yeah, another question that it may not be very, you know, that it may have the similar answer to the previous one is does the leg splayed change their personality somehow? Are they different as to other rabbits?
That's really hard, because I am a firm believer that every rabbit is different. Every single rabbit is different from every other one. So they were always going to be different. My gang upstairs are the most accepting, loving group of rabbits towards other rabbits who are ill. So I've had several rabbits who've come into my care and I've known they won't live very long. And on introducing them, I do the same bonding method for every rabbit who comes through the rescue. I've never had I've never had a problem with bonding any rabbits into my guys, because it's like they go, oh look, you're also a bit poorly, come in, we'll look after you. They are beautiful. They are, you know, they seem to recognize like for like, which is not something I've really, you know, I really bond all the time. I've got 3 bonds upstairs at the moment going on. It's something that I just do bread and butter every day. I've never met rabbits like my own who welcome anyone who looks a bit different or is a little bit poorly. They are that good. They're just beautiful. So I think there's that. They recognize each other isn't quite right, but they are just really, they just welcome. We've got another sanctuary group as well. None of them are splayed, but one of them's got cancer, one of them's palliative, one of them has severe respiratory issues, one of them has one eye and other issues, and they're exactly the same. If they get another rabbit who we're like, oh, this one's poorly, we need to put it in with them, they're like, come on, come in, welcome. It's like they know, because they're all a bit compromised.
Yeah, it reminds me to people, actually, because it is not uncommon to see people with disabilities and with problems welcome not just other people with disabilities and issues, but everyone else. Like everyone that treats them correctly and treats them nice. They welcome, and they are very open about what they have, what they need, what their issues are, and it draws that, you know, similarity between each other, and it is nice to hear that they're so loving, because it really shows you that they can actually understand it.
Yeah.
So yeah, talking about a bit, you know, socializing and bonding and all that. How do they socialize exactly? Is it different to all the rabbits?
No, they are the most beautiful group of rabbits. My guys specifically. They do what every other bonded rabbit group would do. They spend time together. They spend time by themselves. They groom each other. They groom themselves. They eat together. Sometimes they have time apart from each other. They're just a well gelled. I don't bond them any differently than I would any other rabbits. I just have to make sure their bums are extra clean whilst they're doing the bonding. So obviously it's neutral floor with hay, and they poo so much. But apart from that, they're just like any other rabbits. They're just rabbits who didn't quite get the chance when someone else let them down because they looked a bit different.
So you've mentioned some minutes ago that you bond them together, but they're kind of in the same group. But have you ever had to bond one splayed rabbit with one that does not have a disability, or let's say a normal rabbit?
Yeah, so one out of the group upstairs is what you'd call normal. He's a hermaphrodite, so he's also a she. So they're not completely like bog standard female or male rabbit. But he is my own rabbit, so he existed before the sanctuary group began, and he lives up there with the gang. The difference between him and them is that he jumps up on my desk and sits on my desk and poos everywhere. The rest just do it on the floor. So the only difference is that he is able to jump. The rest of them can't. He loves them all. We always joke in the group that he's going to get a complex one day and start limping because he doesn't understand why he doesn't. He has 4 legs that work, but he's Ushy. They are fantastic, and it hasn't impacted them at all. And I have had I've had older, like old palliative because of old age and issues to do with that in there with the splay legs. It doesn't make any difference really.
Yeah, and when it comes to bonding a splayed-legged rabbit with a normal rabbit, is there any difference at all? No?
Same rabbit-led 24/7 method that I recommend to everyone. It's short, it's concise, it's ethical, it's not stress bonding, and it's a nice, easy process for you to follow.
There's situations where the splayed-legged rabbit would somehow become the dominant rabbit in that case, or would they never be because they're less able to?
So one of my bonding things is I'm campaigning quite hard to throw out the terms dominant and submissive, because I completely believe that rabbits flex depending on who they're with. My relationship with my mum, I'm different to my relationship with my partner, I'm different to my relationship with my manager at work. I'm not dominant or submissive in any of them. I just have different relationships. The matriarch, if you want the word to it, of the group upstairs is one of the splay-legged rabbits. And the FD, the one who can walk, he's not really interested in bossing anyone around. So if you wanted to put the word dominance in, I would say that Lizzo, who is very splayed, she has 3 splayed legs, is up there. But, I think whilst she is the boss of the group, I wouldn't say she's particularly, I don't like the word dominant. I just think it puts rabbits in a box almost sometimes. So.
We've finished talking about bonding. Do you have any experience socialising splayed-legged rabbits with other animals?
I don't recommend socialising rabbits with other animals in general. I don't really understand the point of it, if that makes sense, because they speak rabbit, rabbits speak rabbit, dogs speak dog, and cats speak cat. So whilst you might have a cat in the house who walks past, I wouldn't necessarily socialise them, I don't think. Or you might have a dog in the same house as the rabbits. They're not going to bond together because they're different species. They can't speak each other's languages. It's the same as having 2 rabbits, for example. So I think, I don't think it would. It's no different to other rabbits, really, in that regard.
Yeah, well, I use the word socializing because using the word socializing, but it's more like having them share the same house and one not attack the other. Let's say.
Yeah.
So okay, we can get into more of the care part of the questions. So kind of going back to making sure that the rabbits are comfortable and they are in a safe space and all that. So what should people look for when adapting their house to a splayed-legged rabbit?
My number one thing is vet bed. You will have a lot of vet bed in your life, and your washing machine will never stop because you will need to clean it all the time. Vet bed is absorbent, but it doesn't mean it holds the liquid. It goes straight through. So you need pee pads under your vet bed. People forget that all the time. So they put the vet bed down and then they lift it up and they go, oh my God, there's pee all over my floor. And I'm like, yeah, where do you think it was going to go? Yeah. You need to put pee pads underneath, and pee pads. And if you get washable ones, like incontinence sheets, you can just stick them in the wash and have them on rotate. You want to vet bed the whole of the enclosure if you can. I use a puppy pen. I give them the 60 square feet. They live in my office at the moment. So they've got the same amount of space that they need, because just because they're disabled doesn't mean they should have less than the recommended amounts. But the vet bed is across the whole of the bottom of it. I have to clean that out every single day. Walk-in litter trays, 2 of them. I've got, they just go in, it's a potting tray, like a plant pot tray. They just go in and do the hay jobs and then go out and poo outside the litter tray, that's fine. And then any hides that I've got are extra wide. So I have people who have made extra wide hides for me so they can fit their legs in, because otherwise their legs would get caught going into the entrances. And they're all multi-entrance, because if something ever did happen and they had a little scuffle or a little chase, you wouldn't want them to be stuck in one hide. Multi-exit is always better for any rabbit, to be fair. That's not just splayed. And then multiple water bowls. I have massive dog water bowls. I keep them in the same place because my head tilt rabbit looks for them if they're not there. So have a couple of those, and yeah, that's about it, to be honest. Everything else is just as is.
Yeah, because you keep them on a controlled environment, I guess. Bunny-proofing the house is not as important as it will be with a...
Exactly. It's like contained chaos.
Yeah.
The rest of the house is nice, and then that room is just, I shut the door sometimes and pretend it doesn't exist because it's so disgusting.
Yeah. Is there any other items that you've used, like, for example, socks or nappies or something?
No, I really don't like nappies on rabbits for like any reason. Rabbits need to be able to pee and poo, and they need to at least, even if they can't get down there, it's a natural behaviour to want to groom themselves, and taking that away from them is humanising them. That's why you've got the vet bed, because it keeps them nice and dry, because the urine goes straight through. That's why the pee pads are under there as well. I think looking after their back end is really important. You know, I have to shave them all within an inch of their lives, and they look like little bald chickens on the back end. It's good job they can't see back there. Let's just leave it at that. And they, yeah, it's about the environment, and I really don't recommend putting things on them unless you get to a real critical point. But if you've got to a real critical point where that has to be done, I would be really hoping that you'd be like talking to a couple of vets and understanding what else you could do for them, because vet bed is the answer to most of your prayers, quite frankly.
We were curious because we were so playing while we were writing the questions, and we were curious about what kind of toys do splayed-legged rabbits play with.
Everything that normal rabbits play with. Just like throwing toys, chew toys, sticks, forage. I've given them tunnels a couple of times and they got stuck, but it didn't stop them really. They kept going through even though they kept getting stuck in the tunnels. If you tell them they can't do something, they will try and do it. You know, it just comes back to them not quite realizing that there's something not quite right. They'll do everything Soap can do. Stally will do as well.
Yeah, the rabbits are inconvenience machines.
That is an amazing phrase. Yes, I will be using that.
So yeah, I imagine then that coming back a bit of behaviour, they also play with each other. Maybe a bit of I know chase may seem like a territorial behaviour, but maybe like running with each other, having binkies with each other. And,
Yeah, so it depends on the rabbit as to what binkies look like, because when you've got legs that go different ways, it can look a lot like a lot of different things. Yeezy, who's my youngest, doesn't really binky. She kind of launches herself up in the air in a popcorn. Like, guinea pigs just jump directly up. That's what she does. Lizzo just kind of flails her legs around and runs at speed at my head-tail rabbit, Copper. I haven't seen Stally binky. But yeah, they honestly, they are like any group of bonded rabbits. They do things together and they take time apart, a bit like me and my partner. I do stuff with him and I'm like, I'm sick of you now, I'm going to go over here and you stay over there. That's just what their relationship is like.
So yeah, there is a couple of questions more. We're almost done with it. So the next question is if they have any dietary needs. Is there anything different you give them apart from hay?
Not particularly. It comes down to the individual rabbit rather than them being splayed. I am quite strict with my guys. They only get hay and pellets and forage. I don't feed any vegetables, any greens or anything like that. And that's what a lot of rescues are doing nowadays, because we've seen a real rise in general better gut health. When you're not giving brassica or watery veg, it is much more kinder on the tummies to just feed a variety of forage, hay and pellets. Since I moved my guys onto that diet, they've been so good. Like, I've had hardly any issues with them, with the exception of my spinal trauma rabbit, who again is spinal trauma, Kendrick, who poos all over himself pretty much every day, which is, it's not nice for him, it's not nice for me, it's not nice for his wife, it's not nice for anyone involved, and it absolutely reeks. And he has had a poo sample taken and we're waiting for the results. But I am of the opinion that it's not going to show up anything much. I think he's just, I don't really know what's going on with him. It's hard because he's one of the rabbits who I'm worried about failing to thrive. his knees pull up into his stomach, so he finds it really hard to clean himself. So when he does poo, it causes an almighty issue down below. So I'm kind of in a bit of a battle to kind of resolve that. But in terms of diet generally, I just do usual hay, good quality pellets, and forage every now and again.
I think cutting on greens, it's important because that also means that you cut down on secotropes.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Some rabbits do absolutely fine on greens and don't have any secotropes at all. But I'm just of the opinion, if I know that greens are not as kind on the rabbit's tummy and I can give them the variety they need through dried forage, then I'm going to do it, aren't I? And also, I don't have to go to the shop all the time and buy spring greens and buy kale and buy this and that. I can just get a bulk order of forage, sprinkle it in. They still get the variety, they still get the excitement. And then every now and again, if I do give them like the teeniest, tiniest bit of something green, they act like I'm their best friend ever because they never get it. So it's like, it works for me. And if there is a green that I would give them, it would be a herb. I'd give them parsley or I'd give them dill because that is kinder on the tummy than spring green, kale or cabbage or whatever.
Yeah, well, we humans use some of the herbs to better the stomach.
Yeah.
And, so it will make sense that giving it to them will kind of help
Yeah.
too.
Exactly.
So continuing with the questions, is there any special practices you carry on with the rabbits? You mentioned expressing the bladder.
Yeah, that was for Pavlova, bless her. She was really one of the most complex rabbits I've had in. Spinal trauma case, dragged her legs around, got herself rich. She had to have a bowled bottom the whole time. She was a mess, bless her. We had a good couple of months. I think I had her for 3 months and that was it. Two really good ones. One when I was trying to kind of claw it back and kind of get her good again, and then she passed away. But she couldn't pee by herself, so I did have to express her bladder, which was, she didn't enjoy it, I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't nice for her. She was an exceptional case though, because she had spinal trauma and it basically blocked off her bladder where she had the injury. The rest of them, not really. I mean, I have to check their bottoms, and like I said with Kendrick, who has problems with pooing properly, I have to give him bum baths. I have to shave him down, which is really difficult because he's unneutered. I can't neuter him because of the way that his legs are, which is another thing with splay-legged rabbits. Sometimes you can't spay them, sometimes you can. 2 of my girls are spayed and they're splay legs. But Kendrick, the way his legs are, this is going to sound really, I mean, it is horrible. The way his legs are, one of his balls is kind of mashed up into his tummy at the moment. So I'm kind of, your face there is like, I think I need to.
Because, oh wow, it's difficult.
Yeah, it's just, we haven't quite figured out the plan yet because he's still really young. So I don't know if he will be neuterable, but I really have to keep an eye on him. So it's just knowing that things grow differently because their legs go in different ways means that you have to take better care of making sure that there's no infections, that genitals look how they should look, that there's nothing going on with the bums. And in summer, fly strike is at a higher risk than it would be with other rabbits. So.
So regarding cleaning them, do you actually have to, what do you think of bathing?
I wouldn't ever bathe a rabbit. Well, I wouldn't ever bathe a rabbit. And when I do say that I give them a clean or a bum bath, it's literally only the bit that's affected. And that is with, very specific items that I would have to clean with. So I wouldn't use like you go to the shop and it's like, here's a rabbit shampoo. Absolutely not. I've got very specific topical things. Some are medical, some are things that I have worked with another sanctuary to figure out what's the best thing over a series of years. But when I only bum bath if I absolutely have to, because it can be really sore. If they've got to the point where you need to do that, they've probably got urine scald. They've probably got like really sore skin underneath there. So you've got to be careful about doing it. And once they're out, especially in this weather where it's quite cold here at the moment, you've got to be really careful about drying them and making sure they don't get cold afterwards.
Well, there's a general thought of in the rabbit community that bathing is generally bad.
Yeah, it's
terrible. You only have to bathe the specific part you're trying to clean, and that will make sense. I wanted to ask: is there any way of accessing the information of the creams you use?
I can send you a list. My only reservation is that people wouldn't seek medical this is the same thing with any medical thing that I would say. I'm giving advice based on rabbits who have seen a vet, and I have the agreement of my vet that I'm doing the right thing. So if anyone has a splay-legged rabbit or has a poorly rabbit for anything, don't go straight to giving medication. You need to go to the vet first and go, this is what I've been advised.
Going to the vet is the first step with absolutely
always
everything.
You know, it's because you see online, it's like, oh, my rabbit's got this and I'm doing this, and I'm like, well, have you taken them to a vet? No. Then what are you doing? Like, you're not a vet. Vets specifically go through like years and years of vet school to be able to give you the answers, and people just do it themselves.
Well, I was more asking from the, we figured this cream may be good, more than the vet creams that you actually use. More like homemade creams that may be useful for later after they go to the vet.
Yeah, I can give you those.
Yeah, now that we're talking a bit about the going to the vet and all that, how often do you take them to the vet?
Generally speaking, for every rabbit, it's a 6 monthly minimum check. With the splay legs, it depends how poorly they are. Usually when they come in, I'm looking at vet trips really regularly because I just need to make sure they're okay and get them stable, figure out if I can spay them or neuter them, make sure they're vaccinated, all that sort of stuff. Once they are stable, Lizzo, I get her checked every 3 to 6 months. The main thing I'm looking at is the ears, because if they can't clean their ears, obviously they are susceptible to infection. As much as I enjoy scooping out earwax like an absolute lunatic, I should probably go to the vet, like I just said, and not just do it myself. So I do go every 3 to 6 months with all of them and just make sure ears are okay, tummy and bum look okay, genitals look okay. But obviously if I'm ever worried, I go sooner.
So I'm guessing the ears and the scalding and all the irritations and infections that may happen on the skin are the common reasons you take your rabbits to the vet. Yeah,
I think the most common would be, they are. It is usually bottoms or ears, to be honest. They're the two main ones.
The last question may be a bit controversial for you. I can't say that word. Controversial for you, sorry. But what do you think of doing surgery on splayed legs?
I don't think it's necessary at all. We took a beautiful splay-legged rabbit, who is one of my little children upstairs, from another rescue in the UK. And they took her originally to a vet and then to a physical therapist. Now, the physical therapist decided to wrap her leg. Unfortunately, wrapped her leg too tight, all blood was lost to her leg, and she nearly lost it. That was not necessary. It also depends on the rabbit and what it is. But I'm talking strictly about congenital splay legs. Yeah. They were born like that. It means that it's probably not just the leg that's affected. They were born, something happened in the uterus. Chopping off a leg doesn't mean you're going to fix something that might be completely wrong in the belly. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If they're born with internal complications, getting rid of one limb is not going to be an issue. Also, if it's one limb that's splayed, it's not going to make that much of a difference. They can still live long, happy lives. Yeah. If it's 2 or 3 limbs that are splayed, you're going to compromise the rest of the body if you amputate. So if you had two on one side and you got rid of one, you'd lose all stability there. If you had one on either side, the rabbit would start leaning and be more prone to pressure sores. My answer is just don't amputate. If it's congenital splay-legged rabbit, do not amputate. Amputation has its place. We've had rabbits who've had limbs taken off for the right reasons, but splay-leg isn't a reason, in my opinion.
Well, this is going to be the last question now, and it's a very, very important question, especially for people in shelters. Can you have favourites?
Oh, so hard. The right answer is probably no. The real answer is, I think you can. I mean, my favourites are all my splay-leg and wonky rabbits. I have about 20 rabbits on the top floor of my house at the moment. My favourite are my splay-legs and my wonky rabbits, because they are the rabbits who have been given up by people, were slated to be put to sleep, and now they're living their best lives, pooing all over my office. I mean, how could I not love them the most? Exactly. I think when you're in rescue, it's really easy to kind of not disconnect, but when you see a lot of rabbits coming in and out. So when you do fall in love, then you're kind of like, they can't leave. The good foster carers are the ones who let them leave. But when it comes to splay-leg rabbits, I'm lucky enough that I don't let them leave because they're sanctuary rabbits, so they're always going to stay. So it's kind of a loophole. Yeah.
Can I ask one more thing?
Yeah.
To finish off, what kind of general message would you like to give out to people that have splayed-leg rabbits?
I think ignore all the people online who say they're sorry for your rabbits. The main thing. And so long as they've got a happy life and they've got friends, because companionship is another big thing. A lot of people think disabled rabbits can't have friends, and they absolutely can and should. Then you're doing the right thing by your rabbits, and keep doing it. And I think if you, depending on who they are, where they are, what they're doing, you know, make sure you've got the right vet care. Make sure you've got a vet who advocates for you. It's all right to shop around. If you've got a vet who everyone else loves, but they don't believe in the ethics that you have. It took me a lot of goes to find a vet who didn't look at my rabbits and go, I'm going to put you to sleep. And now I have clung to her like a limpet, and I will never let her go because I know that she will give every wonky rabbit a chance. So I think it's just important to remember that just because they look a bit different, it doesn't mean they're not happy. God, I should have written that down. That was great.
Well, you will have the recording afterwards. This has been Heather from the Bunny Jackpot Foundation talking a bit about splayed legs and all the general things.
Other stuff as well.
You can visit the Bunny Jackpot Foundation and talk with them if it's necessary. If you want to help them or donate them, you can also do that. I don't know if you're taking volunteers, but I'm sure if people would like to help you or become a foster, they could do that too, and they could contact you about it. And so if there is any other questions you may have about splayed legs, you can either contact us or Heather. I'm pretty sure she'll be wonderfully happy to answer those questions and to help you. And thank you very much for watching the video. And I hope it's been helpful and you have learned something about splayed leg rabbits.
You can always find more information about Bunny Jackpot at Instagram us at Bunny Jackpot or at Bunny Jackpot Foundation, in their website bunnyjackpotfoundation.co.uk, or at their Facebook, the Bunny Jackpot Foundation.
Thank you very much for watching the video, and remember you can always find more information regarding rabbits and their welfare at boyosop.com.